Africa stands on the brink of its greatest transformation in modern history. For centuries, we've endured division, exploitation, and betrayal.
Pan-African lifestyle.
Welcome to Pan-African Lifestyle, where we rep the motherland. We post content regularly and invite you to subscribe and share. If you're a pal, that's a Pan-African lifestyler.
Africa stands on the brink of its greatest transformation in modern history. For centuries, we've endured division, exploitation, and betrayal. Our lands have been stripped, our people scattered, our futures dictated by others. And yet, here we are in 2025, standing at the edge of destiny. Right now, three nations, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, are leading what can only be described as a revolution. They formed the Alliance of Sahel States, a bold declaration of African autonomy, separate from ECOWAS, and tearing themselves free from the systems that have chained the African continent for decades. This is not just a political move. It's a moment that could change everything. But moments like this don't last forever. If we don't act, if we don't rise to the challenge, we will lose the greatest opportunity for unity and freedom Africa and the diaspora has had in generations. The question is simple. Will we step into the future that is waiting for us, or will we allow fear, division, and complacency to hold us back? Welcome to the second State of the African Union address. Pay attention. A few weeks before New Year's, I got this in the mail. A commemoration for reaching 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I was relieved, but when the elation wore off, I thought to myself, what does this really mean? Am I suddenly able to have more of an impact on Africa and the diaspora, or is this simply a vanity trophy? Regardless, thank you to everyone that made this possible. I'm truly grateful for every follower and subscriber I have. But again, what does this mean when the world is crumbling around us? Wars rage between Russia and Ukraine. There is unrest in the Middle East. Conflicts devastate Congo, Sudan, and Somalia. Riots and economic collapse in Kenya and Nigeria. Western societies teeter on the edge of oblivion. But what some call chaos, I call opportunity. I believe this is the moment we've been waiting for. The moment to build the bridge between Africa and the diaspora, to unite as one people with one purpose. I began this platform 2 years ago with a simple mission: to tell the untold truths of Africa's history. Some of you have watched hundreds of my videos on my platforms and read hundreds of my articles in my newsletter. I told you about the true name of Africa, the looting of the Benin Kingdom, the true size of Africa, Mansa Musa, the richest human in history, the Ghana Ivory Coast Cocoa Wars, the assassination of Africa's greatest leaders, and many more. These stories mattered because they gave us something we've long been denied: context. They showed us that Africa is not defined by poverty, corruption, or conflict. We are defined by greatness. Greatness that has been hidden, stolen, and distorted. To use a compass effectively, you need an origin. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where you came from? But as I told these stories, as the months and years passed, as my audience grew, something became clear. The past, our history, it's powerful, but the present demands our attention. Current affairs and the perspective with which to see it is what captured your imagination. Today, the Sahel Alliance is proof that even the most modest of African nations can take back control of their destiny. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have taken a stand against neocolonialism, but their courage has come at a cost. Captain Traoré alone has endured almost 20 assassination attempts, and he's only been in office for 2 years. Sanctions, isolation, betrayal, not just from the West, but from within Africa itself. And that's the lesson we must learn. It's the lesson I learned with some of the attitudes and comments I've encountered as I've tried to unite us with my content of education and truth. Our greatest battles will not be against outsiders. They will be against those that look like us. They will be against our fathers, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters. They will be against ourselves. Harriet Tubman once said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." Too many of us still wear invisible chains, consciously or subconsciously. Chains of self-doubt, chains of division, chains of dependency on systems that were never built for us, but designed to make us love those chains like diamond necklaces. Necklaces that some of us will fight our brothers and sisters to the death if they even question their value. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have shown us what is possible in spite of those sanctions from ECOWAS, the political isolation, and the economic pressure. This is the price of freedom, and it is a price that many African nations are not willing to pay. Look at Nigeria, look at Ghana, look at Kenya. These are the so-called giants of the continent, yet their leaders have done everything in their power to maintain the status quo. Rather than support the Sahel states, they've acted at the behest of Western powers to keep things exactly as they are. This is not leadership. This is not the leadership we need in Africa. There's a reason why any African leader that defies Western control is either unalived or overthrown. There's a reason why any African leader that is a friend of the West but abuses his own people is allowed to stay in power for half a century till they leave this world, till they draw their last breath. Look at Cameroon, look at Gabon. The list is too long to mention. It cannot be coincidence that the US and France only seem concerned for democracy in Africa when the leader doesn't dance to the beat of their drum. It proves beyond any doubt that those that say they have our interests at heart, those that say they want to promote prosperity in Africa, I will say this clearly so I'm not misunderstood. They are and always have been liars. They want what is best for them, not what is best for us. And we must emulate that mentality. But let me tell you something. The Sahel Alliance is not waiting for permission to succeed. They are not waiting for approval from the West, from ECOWAS, or even from their own people. They are forging a new path, and we must decide whether to follow or to stand in their way. Unity is the only way forward. But unity doesn't mean acting as a monolith. It doesn't mean we must act like sheep. It means we must agree on only one thing. We cannot succeed divided. In the US, we see tensions growing between African immigrants and foundational Black Americans, FBA. These are Black Americans descended from slaves that built the United States. These divisions are a gift to those who thrive on our disunity. Don't get me wrong. I understand the frustrations. FBA principles are necessary. They protect Black Americans from being compromised by those who do not share their struggles or their goals, especially from immigrants who are so easily co-opted by the allure of assimilation into the mainstream. We as Africans have been used against them in the worst way. We are held up as the good Negroes, the ones to emulate, and many of us embrace that mantle in exchange for status and power within the society we so desperately wish to assimilate into. But here is the truth. Africa cannot rise without the diaspora, and the diaspora cannot rise without Africa. We need each other, and that is why there has always been an effort to divide us. The wealth, expertise, and innovation of Black America can be instrumental in dismantling neocolonialism in Africa. And the resources, history, and culture of Africa can empower the diaspora to take and stand in their power. This isn't a one-sided relationship. It's a bridge, and we must build it together. For 2 years, I fought to share this vision. I battled algorithms, censorship, platforms that refuse to value African creators. TikTok doesn't care about this kind of message. Neither does Instagram, YouTube, X, or Facebook. If they did, the concept of African unity and autonomy would saturate social media. To say there is no audience for this message is ridiculous. This is easily the most popular type of content in Africa, but Africans are being prevented from accessing it. The platforms have no incentive to do that, and I completely understand why. A jailer doesn't give the prisoner the tools to break his chains. You give him the tools to reinforce those chains. So he calls his jail cell home and loves it like it's paradise on earth. Take all emotion out of this, all moral judgment, and look at it logically. It makes sense how they operate, and we shouldn't complain about it. we should act accordingly. This year, I will no longer hope for validation from these systems and platforms we don't own or control as Africans. No, in 2025, I dedicate myself to one purpose: complete creative autonomy. Have you seen the movie 300? It's based on the ancient myth of 300 Greek Spartan warriors that defeated an army of Persians. This gave me an idea. I'm consolidating my memberships on my platforms into something more powerful and independent. We will form our own 300, our own alliance of Sahel states. Like the legendary Spartan warriors who faced impossible odds, I don't need an army of thousands. I only need 300 committed individuals, 300 people who believe and are ready to fund the creation of content that educates, inspires, and uplifts us. To do this in a forum that has absolutely no outside influence or algorithm. Each quarter, the 300 will decide what projects to create. Each quarter, they will provide the resources to make it happen. I'll set the base rate at maybe $100 once a quarter when the project is voted on, but any individual can decide to put in more. This isn't that different from Patreon, Kickstarter, or GoFundMe, but it's refined, bespoke, focused, and efficient. This will give me the freedom to do for my African and diasporan audience what I need to do and how I need to do it. Together, we'll create a system that cannot be censored, silenced, or suppressed. There can be no growth or survival without resources. And that is why I'm reaching out to those in my now million-strong audience. Are there 300 of you willing to work with me to do what we need to do? If so, there is a link to the 300 form in my profile bio and in the description of this video, depending on where you are watching this. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are not taking the steps they're taking because they know they will win. They're taking these steps because they know that self-sufficiency is the only path to freedom. We must follow their example. The world will not save Africa, and it never will. We must save ourselves. Africa will rise, but only if we make it so.
Thanks for tuning into Pan-African Lifestyle. Share your thoughts in the comments section and follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Pan-African Lifestyle to be inspired. For awesome PAL merch, check out panafricanlifestyle.com/shop. Keep repping the motherland.
Promote your campaign with PAL. Email info@panafricanlifestyle.com or visit panafricanlifestyle.com for business and general inquiries.
Pan-African lifestyle.